right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Freaking Epic podcast. Guess what? This isn't the end. Even though it sounded like that was the end of the podcast, it wasn't. This is actually the beginning. It is the beginning of a Freaking Epic podcast. Normally, we'd be doing preview review with Nathan Farrell, but because Endgame just came out, we're going to be doing an actual review. And this is my co-host, who I just introduced.
Hey, what's up? Hey, and from here on out, just so y'all know, we probably should say this at the beginning. This will be a very spoilery discussion.
Horrible spoilers.
We will be talking about pretty much every single thing in the entire movie. So from here on out, you've been warned.
Yeah, there are spoilers for every facet of Endgame. Spoilers for how the actors felt while filming the scenes. Spoilers for which actor had the best haircut according to all the other people. All sorts of nonsense spoilers. That's not going to happen actually, but we like to imagine it would.
Indeed. So, what are your initial thoughts of the movie? Did you enjoy it?
Okay, so initial thoughts. So when Infinity War ended, I had avoided all spoilers to the point where I didn't know anything. And what I expected to happen in Infinity War was for Iron Man and Captain America to die. And when it came, Iron Man looks like he's about to die, and then he doesn't, but then freaking everyone just starts blowing away into dust. I wound up just sitting in the theater for like 20 minutes afterwards, and then just drove home in silence, sat on my couch in silence in the dark for like 2 hours, just like, because it just hit me, and it just felt like, I don't know what they did to make it feel like it had parallels with real life, but they just made it feel like that. And after this one, I texted a girl that I like, after I was like, it affected me, but in a different way. I mean, the most impactful thing to me probably was Captain Rogers, was Captain America's end, but we can go into that later. I liked it, and I thought it just affected me in a really interesting way.
Yeah, it did to me too. I found myself having a physical reaction to the movie, which is it's pretty rare. I mean, the last time I had this physical of a reaction to a movie, I can't remember. It might have been Lord of the Rings or
wow.
But anyway, there was just a giddiness, and there was definitely a 10-year-old inside of me that was like, yes. And I felt like the movie was good. There are some niggles I have with it, thinking back on it. But I enjoyed it so much that I'm actually trying to avoid thinking about those niggles because I want to just keep enjoying the movie. But overall, I thought it was very well done, and I really enjoyed it.
So let's talk about the start of the movie. I actually really, really deeply enjoyed the start. I know I read some review from someone online who said that it was really slow, but it was so impactful because I feel like a lot of movies, and especially superhero movies, but movies in general, and like TV shows, just media in general, doesn't delve into the impact of the things that happen. It's like, oh, someone's dead, no one cares, da 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 da, But this one, they really just kind of let you marinate in the fact that reality is reality, if everyone's died, everyone's just going to be sitting there like kind of broken.
Right.
I really appreciated kind of the fact that it didn't jump right into kind of the tone of the second act immediately. It stayed with the tone of the end of Infinity War and really let you just bathe in it.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about how the first act of the movie kind of it has the same tone as this show on HBO called The Leftovers, and the premise of it is basically the rapture has happened.
Oh wow!
But exactly 10% of the population of Earth has disappeared.
Yeah,
and nobody knows where they went. So the show is about all the ramifications of what life would be like, and I like that they spent some time with all of that.
Yeah.
In fact, the whole movie, to me, felt like I binge watched an entire season of a good show.
Yeah.
it was very long, of course,
Yeah, it was
very
3
long.
hours, 2 minutes, I believe.
Yeah, so very long. It could have been a 6 episode show, of
Yeah.
30 minutes each. So,
You know
but
what
it was
was
very
really
good.
what was really cool, I thought that like it opens and you don't really expect the way it opens, but you think it's going to go into kind of normal Marvel movie. Like they're like, let's go get him. And then they go get him and they just kill him instantly and it's done. And they're just stuck there with the reality of what's happened. Like it didn't magically fix anything. It
Yeah,
didn't make them feel better. Like it just kind of like real is real. Things that have happened are things that have happened. We can't
yeah.
like there's no magic bullet. And I really like was like, whoa, I don't know where this movie is going because you kind of have a mindset
And
of what a
and
Marvel movie is
I
going to be like.
I freaking love that. I like to be surprised
Yeah,
movies, and I despise when I've seen all of the best parts of the movie in the trailer.
yeah,
When the trailers for this, they did a great job because pretty much all of the trailers were covered in the first 15 minutes of the movie.
yeah, yeah,
And the rest of the movie, you're like, holy crap, I have no idea what is going to happen next. And I love that feeling.
yeah.
So,
Like legitimately not knowing what's going to happen because holy crap, they've killed him. And then they didn't just like immediately introduce kind of the time travel element. They really breathed in for like 20, 30 minutes or 10 minutes, however long it was.
yeah,
They just really let you breathe in the fact that you killed the bad guy and it doesn't change anything.
yeah,
Like I really enjoyed that. And then when you start getting into it, like I really like the fact that Tony kind of got like a coda to his story. He got to be weirdly enough. I mean, he got to be happy and live his kind of day-to-day family life.
yeah. There was, I like Tony's arc. There's so many characters to talk about. I mean, this
Yeah.
podcast could easily be an hour long.
Oh
So,
yeah.
um, yeah, the first act was great, and when they start when Scott Lang shows up, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I see the
That
time
was
travel thing is gonna
yeah.
happen. So
That was cool when he showed up because like just his kind of introduction into the story. It's like I'm one of my favorite things in media is when you see someone go to a new world they don't understand, like seeing someone experience something for the first time and reacting to something for the first time. And we really, I mean, they didn't spend a ton of time on it, maybe 5 minutes, but you got to see him go, oh, what happened? And, walking
yeah,
through the memorial. I really liked the memorial stones. I thought that was like a really cool touch.
yes, very well
And
done.
then meeting his daughter and realizing she's alive, stuff like that.
Yeah,
But then it kind of got like, it was like somber, and then it was like it kind of broke up the somberness when Thor came in. Fat
it totally
Thor.
did. Yeah, so let's talk about like Act Two. You
Okay.
have all of the characters saying, "Hey, let's talk about time travel," and I liked Act Two because it kind of felt it. What it did for me, it kind of made each of the 22 movies feel important.
Yeah, I know. I love that. Even what's generally considered the worst Marvel movie is Thor: Dark World,
Yep.
and that was a huge point in that. Like, even the
Right.
worst parts of the story really and truly matter. Like, that's a
Yeah.
cool.
In a weird way,
Yeah,
it's definitely some fan service, but I actually felt like invested, and I was like proud that I had
yeah,
seen if I'd seen every single one of those movies in the theater, even Thor: The Dark World, which I
yeah.
thought was kind of crappy, and I didn't like Captain America 2. I liked
Wait,
Captain
what?
America 3,
You
or no,
didn't like
Captain America
Captain America?
1.
Oh, okay,
Captain
okay. I was
America
like,
1.
I was heartbroken for a moment.
I think was the weakest one. It kind of felt like a '90s movie directed by
Yeah,
Joe Johnston. So,
that's one of
but
that's my least favorite, probably.
yeah. But yeah, Captain America though is really the heart and soul
Yeah.
of the
Well,
movie.
Captain America and Iron Man, like
Yeah,
those are the two kind of heart and soul people, and it's cool because all of the original six had a real a real emotional arc. We can kind of, we'll just skip around a little bit, but what I want to discuss now is like, it was really fascinating when you kind of go at the end, and in the very end of the credits, you got to see each of the original six, and each of the original six, when you look at it, you know what their story arc is, which is cool because each one of them has a definitive story. Obviously, Iron Man starts out as this kind of jerk and
Yeah.
doing all these bad things, not willing to sacrifice, not willing to give up anything, and kind of all about himself. And then at the end, he manages to live, kind of like calm down and live, but then he still brought back himself when it mattered. And then he dies, but he leaves behind this amazing legacy. And then, Natasha, like, just had this crazy life, but she was able to, in the end, sacrifice herself for her family, which she's, her line in Avengers 1 is, I got a lot of red in my ledger. She's constantly throughout the movies talking about how she's done some horrible things, and she kind of got to redeem herself at the end by giving, not just by saving everyone, but also by creating a family. Like, if Hawkeye would have died, she would have been knowing that she would have known that there was another family out there without a dad, that wasn't a family, but she kind of got to sacrifice herself to give someone else what she'd always wanted. And it was cool because like her adopted family, she sacrificed herself not just for them, but for their adopted family, for their real family, so that everyone kind of
the fight on Vormir between Jeremy
on
Renner
Boromir.
and did I say Vormir?
Yeah, you said Boromir.
It was actually my favorite part of the movie, and
really?
And watching her best him in combat so that she could give herself up. I was like, yeah, that was pretty BA.
And then just like, I like the fact that he never lets go. I read one review that said like he let go, and I was like, no, she pushed off and pulled herself out of his grasp. Like, he had mentally acquiesced to it, but it still wouldn't have happened. He still would have never let go without her forcing it to happen.
Yeah.
I thought, and it was cool because it kind of highlights the difference between, the bad guys and the good guys. Like, the good guys are fighting to give themselves up, and the bad guys are fighting to make everyone else give something up. Like, Thanos wants to heal the world, but he doesn't want to heal it by making the world worse. He's kind of making a sacrifice, but what he always wants the ultimate sacrifice to be that other people don't have the choice. But they want to ultimately give themselves up for everyone instead of taking for the greater good. They want to give for the greater good. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, there's so many storylines. So if we're on the the second act with all of the time travels, which was your favorite time travel plot?
I really enjoyed seeing the behind the scenes of what happened immediately after the Avengers 1 was over. Yeah. It was really cool to see, like, okay, there's Crossbones, and there's, the different, there's all the Hydra agents throughout that they were coming in, and just seeing from a different angle was really cool. Like, and also just, the silliness of like how awesome Guardians of the Galaxy's opening thing was, but also how incredibly dumb it would be if you were actually there watching it.
Yeah. I think my favorite one is also the New York, watching the Bruce Banner Hulk. Kind of fake smash things and walk along, and then of course
that was hilarious.
Has some great lines and when he's fighting himself.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
He says, I could do this all day. He's like, yeah,
I know. And that is America's ass. Yes. That was hilarious. That was a hilarious line.
I tried to find that line on YouTube just so I could watch it over.
I feel like if those call-in pranks were still a thing, like the sound, like Arnold Schwarzenegger soundboard or whatever.
Yeah.
That would be one of the very most used ones.
Oh, yeah. It's so perfect. So perfect.
The bud or the line. I
I'm
really
gonna say
liked.
the line.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
really
very, very
liked the
funny.
ancient one when she heard that Doctor Strange said that this was the only way. She immediately just. I really like it. I hate that movies or TV especially always kind of make this fake drama of I don't believe you. This is dumb. Even it's like Scully and Mulder, even though it's happened 150 times, 150 different episodes, they still have this like kind of hardwired response like I can't believe you. This is stupid. But she's like, oh, a person I trust said this, so they must have a reason, so let's go with it. Like, I really
Yeah,
appreciated the quick acquiescence.
right. It's the refusal of the call. The hero trope that there was a few of those in the movie, but it was great to see the ancient one be kind of a shorter one with some good writing there.
Yeah, and she didn't refuse it. She just basically brought up a few completely legitimate points. And I really kind of thought it was cool that time travel couldn't change the past. Like the past is the past, it's already happened. Time travel can only bring stuff from the past into the present and then therefore change the present.
Yes.
Like there was
Yeah,
no
I liked the way that they explained it and that they set up the rules, although they kind of
yeah.
broke the rules a little bit. But it made sense for the story where they said we can't just go into the past and change the future. It doesn't work that way. But we can go get the stones and reverse the snap.
Yeah, and
So
so I was reading an article on the kind of the movie physics of that, and they brought out the point that it's likely that that kind of time travel only worked because Thanos destroyed the Infinity Stones, because they are what holds together the timeline.
uh,
So they were almost working to be brought back into existence.
uh,
Like so, they kind of made the point that like those time travel rules won't be the same in other Marvel movies simply because the Infinity Stones still exist. And whereas without the Infinity Stones, basically time had weakened enough for them to actually use it.
yeah,
So I thought that was kind of cool. Going back, we'll just kind of loop about. But going back, I like that Hawkeye's kind of got almost the inverse story of Natasha, where he has this family and it's great, and then they're taken away from him, and then he kind of goes off the reservation, and he kind of bloodies his hands, and then she brings him back from that.
yeah,
Like there's kind of a good duality there where she brings him back in a way that he brought her back in, like at before all of this. Like in Avengers they kind of have that conversation,
yeah,
Avengers 1, where he saved her from that kind of fake life, and then she is able to save him and save his family. So I really like
yeah,
that.
yeah. It was great.
And then Hulk, it's kind of funny because Hulk's storyline is that this is the greatest tragedy that's ever happened to him, and it ruins himself and it ruins everything that he comes in contact to be with. And then by the end, he's being recognized in public as for this strangeness, for this brokenness about him. That becomes like a selling point, and he learns how to use it well. And so he takes everything that's broken about him, and by the end, he's whole, but not by getting rid of it, but by coming to grasp with it,
Yeah,
and just integrating it as part of himself.
yeah. It kind of reminded me of his appearance reminded me of the Beast from
Yeah,
X-Men. He's kind of got he can be the Hulk, but he can also be Bruce Banner at the same time. So
yeah,
I did like that. I thought that was pretty neat. And then when he
and then,
puts the glove on and snaps,
yeah.
it's just kind of it's a good world building there.
What do you mean?
Just going back, well, the Hulk kind of has the weakest movie catalog because
Sure.
they had Ed Norton, and in the first,
Yeah, and that was their second movie, so it was like it was kind of when they were still figuring out how to do
actually, yeah,
things.
before that they had Eric Bana.
Well, that
Yeah,
wasn't a
they had,
MCU movie though, but yeah,
right. And then Ed Norton, and then um,
Mark
but
Ruffalo.
yeah, yeah, thanks. And so yeah, he kind of we don't really have an MCU backstory that's really good for the Hulk. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, he's affected with gamma radiation that gives him his power. So, it
yeah.
was cool to watch him put on the gauntlet.
Yeah, it was crazy how many nods to the comics they have because in the comics there are I believe it was in the 90s he became kind of Smart Hulk and like there are just so
Mm-hmm.
many little nods to things like that like
Yeah.
realizing after this that it's the end of the story for Iron Man, it's the end of the story for Captain America, it's the end of the it's and like but all those characters kind of went through all the different phases they went through in the comics because there was the time when Captain America was kind of underground running the secret Avengers and stuff and he went through like that costume and he went through like all the different kind of phases of the character. Iron Man went through a bunch of different suits. Hulk went
Mm-hmm.
through like he had all the different phases of himself where he was kind of like couldn't bring out the Hulk, and then he was, the Hulk is a crazy monster, and then the Hulk is kind of controllable, and it's cool because they really like over the course of 10, 11 years, they really brought in every aspect of the comics. Like they really let the characters breathe through all of their different iterations. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a natural evolution to the characters that kind of makes sense. I mean, there's not really anywhere for Iron Man to go after he gets new and cooler toys every time. But the big thing that we saw in the first Avengers is he says, "I'm always angry," and he just turns into the Hulk.
Yeah,
And so the next natural evolution would be for him to just be both all the time.
yeah.
So
And it's kind of like he's almost come to grips where he's angry, but he's like that was kind of the fun part of like the New York scene. He's like hitting stuff because he's like not angry. He still has the abilities that brings with him, but he's kind of lost or been able to shed the anger, which is really cool.
yeah,
Um, okay, so I'm going to keep going through these. I really like that Thor kind of winds up in Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, I assume he's going to to be in part three
yes.
of Guardians of the Galaxy.
The chemistry
Yeah.
between Thor and Star Lord is
It's
magic, and so
so
I was super
hilarious.
excited at the prospect, and I'm actually just giddy to think about what James Gunn will
Yeah,
give uh, will give
yeah.
Thor to do in Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it'll be really cool.
Yeah, and it was interesting that they managed to bring back a lot of characters who we thought were permanently gone. So, like
Yeah.
specifically Gamora. Like
Hmm.
Gamora's not gone. But it'll be kind of a really fascinating plot point through the third Guardians to see her readjusting to, this is someone I've come to love in a previous life, kind of, and it's like,
Yeah.
how do how does that happen with completely different circumstances? Because they're probably going to play up a little bit like her and Thor flirting a little bit, like they
Right.
did in Infinity War, which is kind
Yes.
of a whole interesting dynamic. Because Star Lord is kind of, I don't know, like he's kind of a tragic character in a little bit of ways. Like he found this love and managed to convince her after being kind of a playboy and getting in trouble all over. And
Yep.
then he lost her and he got her back, but he also doesn't get her back.
He has to start over.
Yeah, he has to start over, and he has to start over with like his whole life he's been trying to prove he's cool. He's been trying to make people call him Star Lord. And then
Yeah.
he finally became cool, saved the galaxy, and then he kind of lost the world and lost his girl, and then he gets it all back, but he gets it back with him back in the kind of the unloved younger child role, like
Yeah,
Interesting dynamic there, I think.
yeah. I loved that. I loved that Thor gained a bunch of weight,
Yeah,
and
that
that,
was
and I also
scary.
appreciate that they didn't make him become buff again
Yeah,
in the movie. He just wears like a hoodie when he's
yeah,
fighting Thanos, because that would have been a little bit just cheesy if you like
yeah.
somehow lightning just use lightning to get abs again or something like that. So I
That
thought
would
that
be
was
a
kind of cool.
100% DC move.
Yeah,
If this was
yeah.
a DC movie, there is a 100% chance he'd have had abs by the end.
Oh, absolutely. He would have like flexed for 5 seconds and just like got abs, and we would have rolled our eyes.
Yep, as you said, absolutely.
What did you think about the uh,
Oh,
Nebula's character and the role that Nebula had to play in the whole thing?
okay. I really thought that was interesting to make her kind of one of the core emotional points of the film because Nebula's kind of been always. I always thought Nebula's character was badly done, honestly. Not terribly, but just like one of the less well done pieces of the universe because she always just kind of seemed underserved and like always weirdly angry and like it was cool to see like even it's cool. So in the first Avengers, you could tell that Joss Whedon didn't know why Captain America was cool. And then the Russos came in and they very clearly understood why he's cool. And so Captain America from Avengers 1 to Civil War or to Winter Soldier is just night and day and they like figure out why that character is awesome. And I like
Yeah,
that that's kind of what happens in the comics. Like even if you don't like a character, there's certain artists' runs or writers' runs that you'll love because they really get what makes that character great. And I thought that that was interesting that like Gamora is one of my or Nebula, I should say, was one of I thought the least well done characters in the MCU, and then she is kind of like, I mean, almost like the third core of this movie. It's like Steve and
sure.
Tony, and then you
Well,
know,
she's necessary for one of the biggest plot points, and I guess this will kind of lead us into Act Three, where where I mean, this is how Thanos in the past discovers that the Avengers are messing with time,
yeah.
and it's because of she's somehow linked from her between
Well,
her two minds, kind of like a hive mind from her past self and her future self.
well, because she has kind of what it seemed like is that she is plugged into a neural network, kind of like
Yeah,
uploading to the cloud,
yeah,
and was like, and Google Drive was like, Google was like, security alert, someone might have your password, they're trying to log on.
right,
Aha!
right,
I thought it was really interesting to see Thanos like know that he won and go do it. Like that was pretty cool too.
yeah.
Um, I really, I know we're skipping around a lot, but that's how we're gonna roll. I really liked the fact that he's just like Thanos at the end was like, "I'm going to wait," and you're like, "What is he doing? That's weird." And then they're like, "It's a trap." Well, yeah, but we're gonna go anyway, And
Yeah.
he was just waiting for that. Like I thought I appreciated it in his character that he wasn't like some. A lot of bad guys are kind of lame. Like they just want their henchmen to do stuff and they want to sit out and not fight. And it's kind of like if you would have just not done that, you would have won. But Thanos was doing it very for a very specific purpose.
Sure.
He came off for a moment like typical action movie bad guy, and then you're like, oh no, he's actually always working toward his actual goal.
Okay, so let's talk about your theater's reaction to the fight scene with Thanos and Captain
Oh,
America
the
picking
best
up
part of the movie, man.
Mjolnir. Yeah, that best part of the movie. Did anybody like gasp in your theater or cheer or clap?
That was me. I was like, I said the F word. I was like, oh crap, that really happened. Oh my God. It was
Yeah,
like, I started freaking
when I
out.
saw that movie and when I saw the movie, I was like, what I wouldn't give to see Zach's reaction to Captain America beating the brakes off
It was
of
so
Thanos
cool.
with Mjolnir. Is the best moment of any superhero movie
Yeah.
I've ever seen.
And
Period.
it just, I mean, even the fact that they like teased that half a century ago, or half a decade ago, like they were like, oh, Captain America's not going to actually try. He'll lift it a little and then put it down.
Yeah.
You know, like, ah, it was so. Oh, that was so freaking cool. Because one of the problems I have with superhero movies in general is kind of, I call it the Batman problem. And the problem
Mm,
is that in a real fight between Batman and Superman, Superman could just poke him and make his entire body explode.
yeah,
Like, because of how much stronger he is. And that, like Thanos, like, I'm like, Captain America's getting knocked aside by Thanos, but really, Thanos can lift like 200 tons, and Captain America can lift like 1.5 tons. Like,
yeah,
he should be pulped every time he touches him, but it made it like quieted that entirely because if you hold the hammer, you have the powers of Thor. Like
right,
the powers of Thor are partially from Thor and partially from the hammer itself. So
right.
that kind of to me a lot made it like okay because it always I know it's a nitpick and I know generally choose to ignore it, but it occasionally bugs me that like you know, Black Widow or Hawkeye or Captain America, people without like crazy super
Yes,
strength can stand up in these fights, and
yeah.
I get it. So
And
I
you
leave it
almost
alone.
have to do a little dance just to give them something to do in the
Yeah,
movie because in reality, I should say, thinking realistically in this fantasy world, they would
yeah,
be killed instantly. So
yeah.
I love that Cap goes from being really underpowered to actually becoming, somebody who can go blow to blow with Thanos, and
Ah,
that's really really enjoyable.
that was so
Getting
freaking
getting to
cool,
watch him do that, and
dude. And
I almost want to just go hang out at the theater and just go in. I just want to figure out at the exact time that scene happens and just walk in and stand on the side and watch it
yeah,
because it it was and just watch the crowd reaction to it as well
yeah.
because it was just so good.
It was
Um,
like, oh man, I was like, this better not be Captain Marvel. I get that like she's the new thing, but come on, because
yeah.
I thought just assumed that Captain Marvel was getting it, but then
Hmm.
when it was Captain America and it's been teased, and Captain America, I mean he's Captain America. He's the soul, like him and Spider Man are kind of the soul of all Marvel stuff,
Right.
like soul, like every hero in Marvel looks up to Captain America and Captain America and Spider Man, regardless of whatever else they do. Captain America is America, and Spider Man's kind of hope. It's like, and so he just like when he just stood up, so cool.
Yeah, and then I mean, my body was just actually every hair was standing on its edge when he's facing down the army of
Yeah,
Thanos, and his shield is busted to crap,
and
and
he
he
just
rebuckles his shield, and he's getting ready to just go take on the whole thing by himself.
I
The
love that.
10-year-old inside me was like, yes, this is what superheroes
This is
are
what we
about.
watch for. And he was completely down and beaten, and everything is over,
Yeah,
and then he just manages to stand up. Like the standing up is the hardest part. I mean, like
yeah,
watch a boxing match. Once they've been stood up, they can walk around and do stuff. It's the
yeah,
standing up the hardest part. But he stands up, and I always appreciate Thanos as a bad guy because he has a sense of the moment. Like he knows he's beaten him, but he just kind of lets him get up. Now he miscalculated in this case because reinforcements were there, but also in any other circumstance, if Doctor Strange hadn't told Iron Man what to do and hadn't kind of prepared him, like by saying if it won't happen if I tell you, like
yeah,
all this different stuff. If all that hadn't been prepared, it would have been fine and Thanos would have won. But I appreciate that he lets him stand up because he's kind of like it's kind of the man to man thing. Like appreciate you as a man, and he just stands up and buckles and like tightens his shield and just like you know what, if I have to stand alone, and because that's what was great, like Captain America too, his speech was, if I have to stand alone, that's fine, I'll do that, but I'm thinking that I won't be alone, and he just stands even though he's alone,
yeah.
and because he stands almost, he's not alone.
Yeah, one other dynamic I wanted to just bring up briefly is uh, Captain America has kind of always played second fiddle to Iron Man. To me,
Yeah,
I've always liked Iron Man a lot more, but emotionally, I knew that this was Iron Man's send off, his farewell. So
Yeah.
um, I was kind of just putting him on the back burner because I knew he would probably die in this movie, but so I'd almost come to terms with like letting him go. Um,
Mm.
if that kind of makes sense. So it didn't have the impact that it should have, but the
Yeah.
impact of Steve Rogers was definitely there because I had no
Yeah.
freaking clue that he was going to do that. So
I really thought that Captain America was going to die in the film, and then I was like amazed. I was like, wow, Captain America didn't die. That's amazing. Like, I didn't expect this. And then to have him come back, and he's essentially out of the franchise now, but also, like, his story ended with him, like, he sacrificed everything in so many ways. And then at the end, he gets to have his life. He gets to go back to his time and, like, live a good life with his girl. And, like, that was such an amazing thing to me. Like, just the fact that, and he went, we've saved it all. I can do a million good things, but I'm just, I'm going to settle for my happily ever after instead of
yeah,
always searching for something greater. And that really, like, resonated with me because as a person, like, I've kind of always been focused on, what if and the hope and possibility. And, like, his thing was just like settle down and enjoy the life, like live your happily ever after, even if it isn't like, you know, as big and glitzy and glamorous. Just lean into that.
right. Any theories on the how that makes sense time travel wise? Because they kind of set up the universe to say you can't go back and change the past, and then they broke the rule right at the end. He goes back and essentially lives on the same timeline, and would have changed the past. So Peggy got married to someone else, and so he kind of goes back and and changes the past, and now she's going to be with him. So it's one of those things that's like you can't think about it too much without.
I read an article about it that explained it and I completely forgot.
Yeah.
But so they've so the thing is there's still another him that lives all this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can't remember what their point was, but basically for him it's not the past. For him it's the present,
Mm-hmm.
and for them, I don't remember. I remember that they had a pretty good point of, like, it's a long article explaining why that was,
Yeah.
but
That was my one big niggle with it. Just saying you've set the rules for it, and now you're kind of bending the rules
so my
of the
thoughts
story.
at the time were something about he returned the stones so that kind of restarted the timeline
Mm.
because the stones kind of were back in their place. And my other thought was, I mean, my thought in the movie was, um, and I don't, now that I probably don't think this was the case, but in the movie I thought, oh, he just lived a quiet, humble life and didn't change anything. He just lived happy.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't change anything just because you live it, like, I don't know. That was my thought. Now I realize that's not the case because I didn't realize she had another husband in the previous timeline. But it
Mm-hmm.
could also be that her other husband was him,
Oh,
because
that's true.
they very specifically never mentioned who her other husband was.
Yes.
And so it is possible that he was the other husband all along. So there
Yeah.
is that kind of possibility, which would kind of overcome a lot of the difficulties, is that he
Right.
always had gone back. And
Yep.
she was always in love with this guy who was the guy she'd always been in love with.
Yep. Yeah. The parallels between this movie and Lord of the Rings: Return of the King were kind of there for me because
Yeah.
they had like 5 different endings and send offs
Yeah.
for characters, and each send off was really perfect. I thought.
Yeah.
The captain send off was great, and
I loved the Captain America send off. Like that,
yep,
that just, because I wasn't expecting it. Like,
yep.
like you
Him
said,
him passing the shield on um, to Falcon was great too.
yeah. In the comics, Falcon and Bucky have both been Captain America several times. So I was kind of wondering I assumed Bucky would be the new Captain America, but it's cool that Falcon got to be it because, like, I do what he does, only slower. Like got to become him, which is so cool.
Yeah, it was neat. I'm still processing Tony Stark emotionally, but
Yeah.
I thought it was great. It's a great ending for him.
I love that he had a kid. I love that he loved the kid, and we got to see him being a good family man and being the best version of himself.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, him dying. I thought it's a nitpick, but I feel like they could have done it a little better because it wasn't. It wasn't as like, oh, he's definitely dead, kind of.
Right.
Like they could. I feel like they could have done that better, but that's more of a nitpick than anything.
Yeah. And he kind of goes out. They don't really explain how he died or anything.
Well, he died because he's a human who is wielding the Infinity Gauntlet. He managed to wield the Infinity Gauntlet much longer than any other human, excepting Star-Lord, who was a half human.
Right. Yeah, of course that's why they just kind of assume that's what's going on.
Yeah. So. Oh, by the way, I did appreciate the fact that Thanos just walked over and sat down. He didn't try to fight. He didn't rail at he was just always, because he was always about the end game, and he just accepted that. He just sat down I guess I didn't do it. Hopefully it works out or something,
Yeah.
And it took way longer for him to fade away, which I thought was cool. He's so strong that even the the power of the universe couldn't take him away that quickly.
And it was great. It was a great emotionally satisfying thing because we got to see Thanos get killed twice.
Yeah.
The first one, I literally let out a verbal "oh" when they
whoa, what the?
Yeah.
Just so shocking. Wait, you're 20 minutes in, they just killed the bad guy. What is happening?
Yeah, exactly. So just great screenwriting all around. I thought that was great screenwriting.
Yeah.
So we should wrap this up. We've been talking for a while. What do you think is next for the MCU?
So what I think is next, Spider-Man Far From Home is supposed to start immediately after this, just kind of like the last Spider-Man started immediately after Civil War. Spider-Man Far From Home will start immediately after Endgame. Mm-hmm. I'm curious what they'll do with the age difference. If they're the same, in theory, it would just be everyone from Spider-Man's class all got snapped away, so they're all still the same age. But there's some weird things. I hope that they address it at least a little bit. What I really appreciate about the Russo brothers is they care about all this stuff. They really care about all this stuff. Joss Whedon, I love Joss Whedon, but I don't think he cared about things like that. Avengers 2 didn't talk about anything that happened in the other movies, but all of the Russo brothers films have been very referential to the others and made the entire universe an important plot point. Making Thor: Dark World matter is really cool. So I'd be interested to see that. But what I think they will do, they'll have Guardians 3 with Thor. They'll have Black Panther 2 and 3 because everyone gets a trilogy. I assume they'll have Captain Marvel 2 and 3. Which would be cool because you can kind of introduce more of the I haven't seen Captain Marvel yet. That's an admission. I haven't got around to it, but I will since it's
funny. You actually don't need to see it for Avengers to be good, but you can't say that about any of the other movies.
Yeah.
So all of the other movies have something to do with the plot of Avengers Endgame, except for Captain Marvel. She just shows up. She's very overpowered, and she has some line about how she's got other planets to take care of the galaxy. So,
but it is cool because there's so much Marvel has such a rich universe. It'd be interesting to see if the Skrulls are the next big bad guy. Because Thanos to me has always been kind of Marvel's biggest bad guy. I know there are more powerful characters in the MCU. but Thanos has always been to me kind of the scariest big bad because because he's inevitable. He's not like the other characters are, scary or evil or, I mean, tons of them are more powerful than him, but he's just he's the one that you're just most scared of. Like if you're in DC, Joker's maybe the Joker or Darkseid are who you're most scared of, even if they're more powerful enemies, villains, or smarter villains or whatever. They're just the ones you get scared of. And so I'm interested to see the next phase. Could be Skrulls, could be Galactus, could be basically a mutant thing, like basically because they're getting the rights to Fox. I'd be interested to see if we basically add in the current characters or just restart. Like it'll be really interesting to see kind of what happens there.
Yeah.
I don't know I mean Galactus, but I don't know if you can. Galactus can't sustain 10 movies the same way Thanos could.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, because Galactus he's just so giant that you can't like fight him in the same way. I mean, it'd be cool to bring in like Silver Surfer and stuff like that, but I don't know exactly what they're going to do. I mean, everyone will get a trilogy. I don't think they'll do a trilogy for Falcon or Winter Soldier.
There's going to be some Disney TV shows that will. By the way, Loki is now disappeared, and so he is now alive, and so that's how they're going to write him into.
And he's alive while having not gone through all the stuff that made him a good guy. Although, granted, he's always been a good guy / bad guy at every point in Marvel universe. But aren't they also doing a Hawkeye series?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think those are good. I mean, I personally wouldn't give Loki a series because he's just so impactful. I would save him for the movies. But like I think. You could do. I mean, I think they're doing a Black Widow movie that I would assume is a prequel.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of interesting. What I'm looking forward to after seeing the movie is I'm looking forward to in about a month. I assume they will start announcing the names of all the movies that are coming up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it would be cool if they eventually start bringing in. If they start bringing in Daredevil and Punisher and Ghost Rider and characters like that into the MCU, not just because they're in the TV show universe, but they're not in the MCU,
Yeah. Well, we should land the plane here in a second. I just wanted to real quickly just reflect. I mean, do you remember watching the first Avengers movie and thinking, "Wow, what a great time it is to be alive. We have different superheroes in the same movie," and it was incredible.
Yeah, it had nothing like that had ever been done. There had never been. I mean, there wasn't like a fight scene with 6 completely different characters that all had their moments, and like the fight was going around and through all of them. Like that had never been done.
No. So I mean, Kevin Feige is a
genius.
He hit it out of the park. I mean, the fact that we just saw a movie that, I mean, we'll be talking about Endgame for the next 15 years.
Yeah, we'll be talking about just the MCU. Like the cool thing too is you don't necessarily talk about. When I talk about Spider-Man, I'm not necessarily talking about like, oh, this particular comic or this particular comic. I'm talking about Spider-Man. I'm talking about the totality of his canon. And I appreciate that, like, all of this is part of the canon, so it all matters individually, but it all matters as, like, kind of an identity point. Like, everyone's like, oh, I'm a Marvel fan, like, and they're not. That doesn't mean they like a particular movie. That means they love the characters and the whole story. And I really thought this one, like, so someone in my theater at the end when there was no after credits scene, they were like, that is disrespectful. But I thought that it was kind of a little bit disappointing, but also it was kind of, I mean, all that you had at the end was just the kind of pounding sound of Tony making the armor in the first movie. But I thought it was like appropriate because this didn't feel like they were selling you on like, oh, there's going to be another one, there's going to be another thing. It was just breathe, enjoy this for what it was. It's over,
Yep.
but it was great.
Yep.
But then like something will be next, but you don't have to think about that now. Just be where you're at.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah, I
All
thought that
right.
was
Well,
really cool.
let's. It's past my bedtime, so
All right. Oh
we're
yeah.
gonna land the plane.
All right. Land the plane. Any final words?
I'd give Endgame a 10 out of 10 easily. I think it's one of my favorite. I have to give it a few weeks of
Yeah.
processing, but as of right now, I think it's one of my favorite Marvel movies. I still love Infinity War. I thought Infinity War was great.
Yeah.
So it could be like, a month from now, I'll have more thoughts on it. But as of right now, I'm still on a high from seeing it and having that experience in the theater. So
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. This has been Freaking Epic Podcast.
adios, amigos.